Welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuoli. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. And it is now 10 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States, which can only mean one thing. Everybody pencils down. Put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers. So everybody has to...
Donald Trump, stop truthing.
Exactly. Stop truthing. Exactly. Just... for a few minutes, stop truthing and pay attention. So it's time for our live stream. And so, Peter, you were talking about just a moment ago about the Tucker Carlson's interview with Candace Owens. And I have to say, I'm not especially impressed by her. I was kind of a little put off. She was going on about Andre Gide, and she kept pronouncing him as Andre Gide. Now, if you're going to go on about Andre Gide, I mean, you might at least get his name right, because if you say Andre Gide, I don't think anyone knows what the hell you're on about. But the point, I think, was that the French are all child molesters and pederasts. I think that was the gravamen of her thesis, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's an easy way to get clicks. Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's exactly.
I know people, good friends too. Particularly one person, she's very dear to me in my life, and she's just obsessed with this story. And I just keep saying, "See what it's doing to you? See what it's doing to you?
Right.
It's an addiction.
Right.
You're addicted to this story."
Yes.
I don't care if Macron's wife is a man. I'm sorry. I don't care. I know that there's a lot of other things connected to it, okay? But, sometimes, and I'm not saying this is the case, but when you have an obsession like this, you can connect dots. You're willfully looking for something, and you may be able to construct it. I'm not critiquing Candace Owens' research. I haven't watched any of it.
I'm not sure she's done all that much research. I think she's deriving her claims on somebody else's research. And, I haven't followed the case particularly closely. But, from judging by what Robert Barnes says, that he says that she's cooked. I mean, basically, she's made a lot of wild allegations. And she's not going to be able to get away by invoking the First Amendment, and that Macron is going to win in this case. So I don't know, but I suspect you can't just defame people and then hide behind the First Amendment.
George, you and I are like Pluto on this one. We just kind of, we do a long lap around and just kind of poke in and see what's going on.
Right.
That's not a hill I'm going to die on.
So. No, I don't think so either. Anyway, so over the weekend,
what did he do this time?
Well, he didn't do much, but he was, I did the thing with a news conference, and of course he did the usual. First of all, he said that Steve Witkoff will be going to Russia sometime in the week, Wednesday or Thursday, and I assume he's going to talk to Putin, though I don't know if that's definite. But I mean, since he talked last time to Putin, I assume that he'll get an entree with Putin again. But I don't know, that may not be. But he's going Wednesday and Thursday.
He's had his shot, George.
He's had his shot. I kind of agree, but I don't know whether would he go if he says, "Well, I'm afraid." You're not going to go any senior to Lavrov. Lavrov is the best that we can do.
And that's a huge favor. Steve Witkoff is who?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Who is he?
Yeah, you're right. But what is very odd about the Trump statements is that he's going to talk about sanctions, the tariffs against Russia, and then he immediately adds the qualifier. I don't think it's going to work, he says. They're very wily customers, and it's not going to work. So now, if you don't think it's going to work, then why are you doing it? I mean, instead of doing something completely pointless how about doing something constructive? So anyway, let's just take a look what happened at this. Uh, what happened there?
Okay.
Um,
No, George, you do the solo. I don't.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yes, yes. I think I just hit the wrong key, which I tend to.
Apparently. Okay.
I tend to do that occasionally. Um, and anyway, here's Trump.
Oh, nice background. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Have those nuclear submarines been deployed yet to face Russia?
I've already put out a statement, and the answer is they are in the region, yeah, where they have to be.
I wonder what Witkoff's message will be to the Russians. Is there anything they could do to avoid sanctions at this point?
Yeah, get a deal where people stop getting killed. They had a number that just came out that a tremendous number of Russian soldiers are being killed. And likewise, Ukraine, a lower number, but still thousands and thousands of people. And now we're adding towns where they're being hit by missiles. So
Hasn't said anything correct yet.
No, no.
And you know, we stopped a lot of countries from war. India and Pakistan.
Here we
stopped
go.
A lot of countries.
That's it. His standard pitch for the
That's his
Nobel
bucket
Peace Prize.
Yep.
Really horrible. Well, you heard about Cambodia and Thailand.
Oh,
That one done. You got the Congo, which was going on for 31 years. Rwanda. That one's done.
done.
We stopped a lot of wars. This is the one we seem to be. This should be the easiest to stop, and it's not. I mean, Rwanda and Congo were going on 31 years, and I got it stopped. 8 people dead, at least. That's what they have, but I think the number's much higher. And the leaders of each country, Rwanda and the Congo, they were great. They were great.
Why is he talking about this?
It's very strange because you always then wonder, well, what did you actually do to stop this? I mean, the war has come to an end, but what did you actually do? He never really explains what it is that he did because he really didn't do very much.
But why is he talking about this? Okay,
Well,
nobody knows. The general public has no idea what he's
No.
talking about.
No idea. They have no idea where Congo is, no idea where Rwanda is. There's absolutely nothing. They only have the vaguest idea about Cambodia and Thailand.
1 year it went on. We stopped a lot of wars. Serbia, Kosovo was going to be happening, and I don't believe it will now. So
So because we stopped that war.
stop that one too. Yes.
That goes on with Gaza.
We want the people fed. And we're the only country that's really doing that. We're putting up money to get the people fed. And Steve Witkoff is doing a great job. And we want Israel to get them fed. We're giving
Israel to get them fed. Yeah, they're doing such a bang up job.
God, see, the truth detector has not gone off yet, George.
contributions, basically to purchase food so the people can be fed.
There's no shortage of food.
Yep.
It just has to be delivered.
Horrible thing. One of the worst I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of bad things since I'm president in terms of wars and potential wars. I mean, if you look at the one that we just stopped, there are thousands of people being dead already at the border between Thailand and Cambodia.
Where is he getting these numbers? The thousands dead in Cambodia and Thailand.
No.
You know, he just makes up these numbers.
People. And I mean, I've seen some bad things, but that October 7th was with Hamas was really bad.
Stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be sanctions, but they seem to be pretty good at avoiding sanctions. You know, they're wily characters, and they're pretty good at avoiding sanctions. So we'll see what happens. But
Why?
he just focused right now on the border in terms of.
So that's they're wily characters.
I mean, I guess I interpret that as being a compliment.
I think it's a compliment. I think it's a compliment. They say, well, they're pretty good at avoiding sanctions. They're wily characters. I think in Trump terms, that's a compliment. I mean, it's like, he thinks if you can avoid paying your taxes, then, well, so much the better for you. You got smart lawyers, and they
Yeah,
give
so
you
George,
access.
what's the point of the exercise, George?
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. That
No, I'm asking you legitimately because I
oh,
think I have a clue.
I have no idea. It seems very strange, and particularly as he came in and saying that he was really, he's had it with these endless wars, the forever wars. He's had it with interventionism. He seems to want to have, he's had good relations with Putin. He wants to have good relations with Russia. Why is he doing this? That's what he doesn't even think it's going to work. I mean, that's what's bizarre is that I'm going to do this, but I don't think it's going to work.
Well, also George mentioning 2 Ohio-class nuclear submarines.
Right.
Well, he should never ever mention
Right.
those because you're not supposed to.
You're not
They sit
supposed
in
to.
the bottom. They sit in the bottom of the ocean.
Right.
They just literally sit there during their tour, as they call it. And,
Right.
and so Keith Kellogg, this moronic fool,
Right.
he's damaging Trump's presidency.
I think so.
Damaging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to go up and down the coast. I mean, you're not supposed to know where these submarines are.
No,
It's
that's right.
called their second strike capacity. You're not supposed to know. You're going to go cruising up and down the coast. You're going to tell the Russians exactly where the most difficult thing to find in the world is a Ohio-class nuclear submarine. And now you're going to go cruising. What are you going to do? Have the flag out? You're going to have fireworks?
Right.
What is going on here?
That's right. That's right.
This is a danger to the United States, not to Russia.
Well, I think so, and I think that if he continues, since he seems to these actions he's taking have now lost any connection with reality, any rational goal, then you have to wonder, well, what other dangerous actions is he willing to take? Because he seems to think that some big thing that he can do will bring this war to an end. I mean, he's not even thinking about, well, actually, one way to bring it to an end is to try to figure out what our objectives are, what we'll settle for, what Russia's objectives are, and then see if we can just somehow meet somewhere halfway. It's kind of what one does when we're thinking rationally of how to end war. But just the idea, well, I've got to do something. I don't know what it is, but it's going to just
that's
shake
such
things
a
up.
good point. I mean, again, we're 12 minutes 41 seconds in. Why doesn't Donald Trump telegraph to the world what U.S. interests are here? That is a good starting point.
Right.
That's a really good starting point. You know why? Because the Ukrainians and the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians and everybody else can start calibrating.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's right.
It's exasperating to me.
It is exasperating, and now he's thrown his weight really behind Ukraine, and there's of course Zelensky kind of saying, "Yeah, we've got a regime change. We want regime change in Russia. Really happy that you're doing this. Happy, you're deploying your nuclear submarines and so on." But now that he's essentially thrown his weight, the weight of the United States, which of course it had been, Ukraine during the Biden years, but at least during this brief interregnum from the time he became president, it wasn't entirely clear which way the United States was going to go. Now that he's thrown his weight behind the Ukraine, it's not clear. Well, what are you going to do? Where do you get off? I mean, since there doesn't seem to be any agenda, any program. I mean, he's sending Witkoff to Moscow with a view to what? What is he hoping to accomplish by sending Witkoff to Moscow?
What is the goal?
Exactly.
To have Ukraine victorious on the battlefield? Or is it something else? To avoid defeat on the battlefield? Those are two different things, everybody.
They are. It's not clear what he wants. I mean, and so if this was the difference between him and with Biden, and I think it's still the difference. I mean, Biden was quite explicit. We want to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. We want to weaken Russia. We want ideally, a regime change in Russia, even more ideally, the breakup of Russia, just a lot of bad things happening for
He
Russia.
said that to Lulu, right? He wants to destroy Russia. Am I getting the right word right?
The what? The what?
He said to Lula, he said, I want to destroy Russia. I want Russia to collapse. He said something like that. It was
Yeah, that's
reported.
what Lula said. Yeah, I think that's what
Yeah.
Lula said. Yeah, yeah, but you never know with Biden. I mean, what he was just, off the deep end
There's a
somewhere.
question here. Do they respect Witkoff? My take here is he's kind of an oddity. He's kind of like a little bit of like a circus clown. He's a best bro of the president. What is his mandate? What weight does he have in the bureaucracy? He's an oddity here, and he's been extended the most gracious welcome every single time. Okay, and the message is always the same. What happens to Witkoff when he gets on the plane and makes it back to Washington? I don't know what happens to him.
My own feeling is that Witkoff is now really a busted flush, because he had that moment during at least the first 3-4 months of the Trump presidency when he could do nothing wrong. He negotiated the ceasefire in Gaza.
He gave him great
Involved in the talks in Oman with Iran, which seemed to be making progress. And then he had these visits to Moscow, which seemed to be very friendly, and you see there was a kind of real warmth between him and Putin. But now with Gaza debacle, and then the Iran I don't know, deceit or whatever
War.
it was,
Call
that
it a
was,
war. Yeah.
yeah, the war. But the negotiations were really just a smokescreen. He really is just a busted flush. I mean, he has no more of a standing than any of the negotiators in the Biden years. It's like, well, I don't know, the Russians are going to think, oh well, we really have to lay on the red carpet for Witkoff. So I think his moment has come and gone.
Yeah, he's in Keith Kellogg territory.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I remember, was it that guy Graham Fuller, kind of that veteran U.S. CIA man, and he was speaking really highly about Witkoff. Oh, he has that Fingerspitzengefühle, that thing, German word. Oh, he really has this. He is so good at diplomacy. It's really, coming out of his fingertips. So yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be saying that. Though, to be fair to him, I mean, he can only go as far as the president gives him a mandate. I mean, it's like, if the president isn't supporting him or isn't doing anything to facilitate anything for him, then I don't know, what can he do? He can have an amiable cup of coffee, but that's it.
I mean, one of our bugaboos here, I just want to mention it real briefly. I don't want to waste our time, but Marco Rubio is not involved in any of these things. Okay. It's all by design, everyone. Marco, he's an operator. He's a garden snake, okay, but he's not an intellectual, as some people call him, okay.
No.
He's keeping away from all these things.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, I think so. I think Rubio is biding his time, keeping a very low profile. I think it's very, very smart to keep a low profile. I mean, you can't do any worse than that.
Sitting in the center of the couch, as we like.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Whenever you're asked anything, you just say, the president says this, the president thinks that, the president is concerned with peace. It's always the president, the president, the president. So no one can question your loyalty, but you're also able to distance yourself when the moment comes and you say, well, it wasn't my policy. And as things stand, he's got one failure after another. The Trump presidency is not going to be judged on Thailand, Cambodia, and Rwanda and Congo. That's not. I mean, Trump may want to be judged by that, but that isn't going to be what it's going to be judged by.
I would be willing to bet a large amount of money that he doesn't even know where these countries are.
No, I don't think so. No. I don't think so. But I love the way he's like, and then Serbia and Kosovo. He's kind of plucked that out of the air, but somehow he's doing on Serbia, Kosovo. But anyway,
Katie Cat says here, "What's Rubio's job?" Good question. What is his job?
It's very interesting because really, since the days of Nixon, really there hasn't been a kind of a non-existent national security advisor. I mean, it's like, but because Nixon was a master at foreign policy, and he had a good relationship with Kissinger. That worked, that relationship. But since then, there's always been a national security advisor and a secretary of state. So now there's no national security advisor, and that is a little troubling, because when Trump comes out with these numbers, and you wonder where's he getting these numbers from? Like, the Russian casualties, according to him, in Ukraine are 14 times the casualties of Ukraine. Nobody says that. Even the British government has, which is always lying.
Even the Ukrainian government doesn't say that.
But so I mean, you're supposed to be getting all this intelligence briefing. I assume he probably never sees Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, I doubt that she has any. She goes into the Oval Office, and since there's no national security advisor, then you have to wonder who's providing you with these weird numbers. Mark Levin? I mean, that's where you're getting it from? You're watching Fox News and you're getting it from Mark Levin?
God help us all.
So anyway, over the weekend, we had Hamas released, I think very unwisely, they released that video of hostages looking very emaciated, and whatever goodwill they'd managed to earn towards Palestine over the past few days was kind of vitiated by the release of these videos. So let's just take a look at that.
Well, everyone is starving, and apparently,
but I'm not going to show the video.
No.
But they're hostages, and so they've been the hostages now.
Yes, they're obligated. Well, I mean, let's be very clear here. If these are soldiers, they're prisoners of war, and they are due the Geneva Conventions. Upkeep of the most basic kind. Okay, the civilians, they call them hostages, they call them captives. They unfortunately, the Israelis don't afford the same kind of.
Right. Well, yeah, but you still have, if they're civilians, they're still entitled to humanitarian treatment. But of course, look, if you're starving the Gaza Strip, there's not going to be much food for anyone. I mean, hostages, captors, no one's going to have any food. Yeah, no, that's
a lot of starvation going on.
Right, that's right.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a reminder is that if you want to end this captives last hostage crisis, then you have to come to terms. And obviously, Netanyahu does not want to come to terms. He never has wanted to come to terms.
That's right, and that's right. But now it doesn't even seem as if Trump wants to do that.
Yeah.
Which, and given that it's obviously damaging his presidency, damaging his reputation, but he's obdurate. So here we have new hostage videos sow fear and horror in Israel. A living skeleton buried alive in Gaza's tunnels was how the family of one hostage described him after a video circulated by Hamas. And then this is the family, an Israeli held hostage in Gaza, saw him for the first time in months in this video. And then, it's obviously an outpouring of fear and horror. And then here's just a still from the video. And then here's the Times of Israel, which says European countries slam videos of emaciated hostages, call on Hamas to disarm. So German leader urges Israel not to respond to Hamas's cynicism by halting aid deliveries to Gaza after release of this footage. And then the EU, Britain, France, and Germany condemned the propaganda videos of two emaciated Israeli hostages published by Gaza terror group last week, with leaders insisting Hamas disarm and play no role in the future of the Strip. I mean, they can go on insisting that, but it's going to be a part of any kind of an agreement. Just simply say, well, you need to disarm, release the hostages, and play no role. I mean, that's you can make that demand. I mean, you've been making that demand almost for 2 years. That's not going to do the job.
Well, French President Emmanuel Macron said the release of the video showed the captors, quote, inhumanity without bounds, and, quote, abject cruelty. Well, there's a lot of other images we've seen in Gaza that would have the same labels would apply. Okay.
Right. Absolute priority for France is the immediate release of the hostages. We must have total demilitarization of Hamas. It's a complete exclusion from any form of governance and the recognition of Israel by the state of Palestine. And the recognition of Israel by the state of... What about the other way around? I mean, just... The recognition of Israel by the state of Palestine. Hey, Israel hasn't even recognized the principle of a two-state solution, and now Palestine is supposed to recognize.
Israel doesn't even recognize its own borders.
That's right. That's right, and doesn't even recognize that there is such a thing as the Palestinian people. So that would be kind of so then we have the Telegraph. Now, the Telegraph reports this: 600 former security officials have written a letter to Donald Trump. And they're saying hundreds of retired Israeli security officials, including former heads of intelligence agencies, have urged Donald Trump to pressure their own government to end the war in Gaza. It is our professional judgment that Hamas no longer poses a strategic threat to Israel, the former officials wrote in an open letter to the US president, which was shared with the media on Monday. And then, at first, this war was a just war, a defensive war. But when we achieved all military objectives, this war ceased to be a just war. As I said, this Ami Ayalon, former director of Shin Bet. The war nearing its 23rd month is leading the state of Israel to lose its security and identity. And then signed by 550 people, including former chiefs of Shin Bet and Mossad. And they're calling on Mr. Trump to steer Benjamin Netanyahu. And then they hear the people who signed, Mossad heads, and of course Yehud Barak, and so on. The problem with any such letter is that Netanyahu is going to say, these are just opposition. This is the opposition people. They hate me. They're my political enemies. You don't want to listen to them. They want to see my political downfall. And since Trump has a tendency to listen to Netanyahu, I don't think he's going to pay too much attention to this 500 former security officials.
What is it with Netanyahu and Trump?
I don't know.
What is it?
I don't know.
Okay, you said something earlier, which needs to be repeated. This is hurting his presidency. Badly.
It's hurting his presidency. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Badly. As a matter of fact, a man that is chasing the Nobel Peace Prize, I mean, it's a fool's errand, but anyway, he's obsessed with legacy, but he's creating it right now.
Yep.
Calling out nuclear submarines, bombing Iran, admitting that there is starvation going on in Gaza. And what is he doing about these things?
You admit that there's starvation going on in Gaza, and then you say you're going to provide the food to Israel to distribute. So you're going to provide Israel with this, because of course Israel is such a great. They're the ones who are responsible.
Who's briefing him? That is, who was president for 4 years before Trump, second term, and who's briefing him now? This president.
Right. Yeah. No, it's damaging him. No end, and this strange argument that he presents, which is getting less and less convincing, and it's becoming more and more tiresome. Particularly when he talks about Ukraine, and he said, "This isn't my war. This is Biden's war." Now, okay, fine, you could say it, when you first came into office, even for about a month afterwards, but you can't keep saying it because Biden hasn't been president now for 6 months. He has been president. And so therefore, he's the one who's going to be judged by what have you done over the past 6 months to bring this to an end. Just simply saying, well, it's not my war. Okay, but it is now. You are presiding over the U.S. government. So you're the one who's making the decisions. yet he keeps repeating this. Oh, it isn't my war. It's just not my war. It's just a bizarre for him to say that, but in a way you can see that's what it's going on in his mind. I mean, he knows that people are now saying this is your war. They say no, it's not. So I mean, it's like he's thinking aloud and thinks that if he repeats this a sufficient number of times, people are going to say, that's right, you're right. It's
what makes it really strange, and George and I have talked about this off and on since his second term started, is it's patently obvious to me, and I think of people like Stephen Miller, when they were, when he was running the campaign, he had a trust, what do you call it, a group of people around him with policy positions on everything you can imagine, because his presidency domestically has been a whirlwind. Okay,
right.
That doesn't seem to have applied to foreign policy at all.
Right.
As a matter of fact, one of the things that George and I have commented on is that Trump, when it comes to domestic policy, he's always ahead of the curve, always ahead, making everybody react, and in a whirlwind way I've never seen in my lifetime with the president. Foreign policy has been reactive.
Yes, exactly. It's but it's reactive, and not once has he articulated any kind of a strategy other than, well, I got to bring this war to an end. I mean, that's not a strategy. Just saying, I'm going to bring this war to an end, so I'm going to do something daring to shake things up, and it's going to bring this war to an end. That's not going to do it. And that's really the point. Just simply, I'm going to shake things up. It's going to not do it. And he himself realizes that again, so you can see his mind is working. He's saying, this sanctions, that's not going to do much. I mean, the Russians are pretty good at getting around sanctions, and since all these rounds of sanctions haven't shifted Russian policy, they're not going to shift now. But he's now stuck with this. Another thing that he keeps saying, this wouldn't have happened had I been president in 2022. The problem with making that claim is that it's actually a hypothetical. Now, if it's a hypothetical, it's not susceptible to disproof, and so therefore it's quite pointless.
That's why you and I
happened had you not been there. I mean, had you been there? I mean, no one knows what would have happened.
Yeah,
maybe it wouldn't have happened. No one knows.
George, come to Moscow. We'll go to a bar and we'll have some drinks, and we can hypothetical.
Exactly.
That's what it's worth. It's a few pints of beer. It's worthless to speculate. It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time. And so it was okay when he said this while Biden was president, but now it's just pointless, because you're president now. You're making the decision. Who knows where Biden even is right now. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up is Moldova. Now, we pay a lot of attention to Moldova, and I guess the reason why we pay so much attention to Moldova is that the EU and NATO pay a great deal of attention to.
Well, why is it, George? Is it because of Moldovan girls or wine? Why is Moldova the apple of their eye? I'm trying to set this up for you to explain to people why this is the next front. Go ahead.
I think it's first of all, Moldova is a hub, an absolute important hub, a logistical hub for transporting weaponry into Ukraine. And they want to also have on the back burner the possibility of opening up another front with Transnistria. Transnistria could certainly be a problem for Russia. There's no land bridge to Transnistria. It would be very difficult for Russia to bring their armed forces into Moldova in order to fight off any kind of an offensive against Transnistria. So it could be a problem for Russia. That's certainly quite likely. But this Maya Sandu is a very unpopular president. I
Oh,
mean,
oh, 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 let's slow down here. It's Parsai. She's unpopular among her people, but not. She's very popular in Brussels.
exactly. And this is the problem that Brussels faces: is that every few years, they have to have elections. And every time there's an election coming up, they look at the poll numbers. They say, "I don't think Maya Sandu's going to make it, so we need to do something." And so there's a parliamentary election coming up in September, and once again they think, "I don't think she's going to make it. I think that her party will lose." So out come the usual drumbeat. Russia is interfering,
Well,
and
because she's not doing well in the polls, it's obvious. It is proof positive that Russia's meddling in the election.
exactly that's the
And
thing.
here we go again, everybody. Look,
Exactly.
I know many Moldovans in Russia. Why? Because Moldova is a very, very poor country, and it has had very bad governance. People leave. The economy is basically buoyant, if you can even say buoyant, because of remittances that Moldovans send back to their family. Okay, it's one of these countries. Armenia is another one of them. If you want to if you're Moldovan or you're Armenian and you want to get ahead in life and you're not part of the 8 families that have traditionally run it, no matter what regime, if it's communist or imperial, whatever, it's the same group of people,
Yep.
you have to leave.
Yep.
You go to LA, you go to Moscow, and
Right.
you send remittances, okay? And this lack of this very, very poor governance, this is a heyday for outside forces to easily manipulate opinion in these small, very poor countries. I mean, the Moldovan elite probably speak French better than Moldovan, for all I know.
Right.
Okay, and France is the country. Okay,
Right.
sorry, Britain. You had to take second place in this one. Okay, I'm sure you're
Right.
there.
Right.
It's the French.
Well, I
And
think
we even have
the British
officials in Moldova.
the British are very heavily involved in Moldova and elsewhere in Central and Eastern
What
Europe.
I'm saying is the French have taken a lead, at least in a
Right.
very kind of public
Right.
relations. I
So
agree.
so a casual perusal today.
There we go again, George.
Yeah, it's not.
George, come back, okay?
I'm coming back.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So here we have the casual perusal of the media stories about this election in Moldova. So this is Politico today. Russia targeting voters across the EU. Moldova warns. Moldova warns. We're kind of behind in the polls. So Russia.
Everybody, you have to give it to Politico because they probably have a Moldovan desk at Politico.
I think they
Probably
do.
because and George and I have been following this here. I mean, anything that moves, anybody that says a word in Moldova, Politico is all
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Anybody sneezes in Moldova,
Yeah.
obviously, it's the Russians are generating flu in Moldova. They want to kill off the Moldova's elite and take over. So here's Russia is.
Go back, read the subtitle. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Moscow is hoping pro-European Moldovans living abroad don't go out to vote in September's elections. The country's national security chief told Politico.
Well, but see, there is the deception from the very, very get-go. Moscow is hoping pro-European Moldovans, okay,
Living abroad.
living abroad.
Yep.
Well, they let the cat out of the bag because Moldova didn't let Moldovans living in Russia vote last election.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's right. Rigged. Rigged.
That's right. That's right. A grand total of 10,000 ballots were provided by the Moldovan government for Moldovans living in Russia to vote. 10,000. 2 polling stations. This is the Moldovan government. It's the Moldovan government that set up this, just these 2 polling stations, 5,000 votes in each. And that election was secured by these Moldovans allegedly living in the EU. And there were hundreds and hundreds of these polling places set up in the EU.
And I
Maya
tend to doubt.
Sandu lost among Moldovans living in Moldova. She lost there. So it was the EU vote that delivered for her.
And I don't have the evidence, but I'm going to make a supposition, is that Moldova, being as poor as it is, couldn't even imagine funding those polling stations all through Europe. Somebody paid for it, and it wasn't the Moldovan government.
Absolutely. And so let's go back to this this political.
Don't disappear on me. Okay, right.
I'm not going to disappear. So there's Russia's ramping up efforts to influence Moldovans living abroad across Europe to try to sway critical elections next month. The EU candidate country's security chief has warned. National Security Advisor Stanislav Sekreru told Politico that officials have seen a sharp uptick in disinformation aimed at the almost 250,000 voters in the diaspora.
How do you know it's disinformation? How do you know?
They never specify what is this disinformation. And where the pro-Western government faces a crucial test. Oh, this is. They're always facing a crucial test. Then it says the campaign is designed to demobilize diaspora voters, encouraging them to stay home, and to manipulate those who do vote into supporting a fake pro-EU force, disguised to imitate the look and tone of legitimate European media outlets. These fabricated reports aim to erode trust in Moldova's democratic institutions and sow confusion among Moldovan communities abroad. So basically they're saying, don't pay any attention to anything, just simply vote for Maya Sandu. I mean, don't read the media, don't look on the internet, don't do anything, just vote.
Okay, disguise to imitate. Example, please.
Exactly.
One example.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like it's ubiquitous. It's all, it's wall to wall.
Yes.
Can you just give one example of what you're trying
right.
to? Anyway, I find this really odd. A campaign designed to demobilize. I mean, this is a novel approach here. Okay, I mean, almost always it's to mobilize people to do something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, demobilize. No, don't do. But of course, they say Russia, but there's no RT, there's no Sputnik. So where is this Russian influence? Where what Russians are providing this nefarious influence? Moldova's sizable population living outside the country overwhelmingly voted in favor of its liberal president. Oh, she's a liberal president, Maya Sandu, in an election last year that was marred by allegations of Russian interference.
There was no evidence. Even the Moldovan government never presented Russian interference. We all know that Europe, particularly the French political establishment, was deeply involved in it. But that's not interference.
No, that is not interference. That's a civil society program. That's encouraging voting, encouraging civic participation. The vote on September the 28th could see possible disruptions similar to those seen in previous elections, such as hoax bomb threats at polling stations in European cities or staged protests abroad aimed at projecting false dissatisfaction. The bomb threats were all there were hoax because they were all set up by the Western intelligence agencies. There was absolutely no evidence that there were any bomb threats at any of the polling stations. This was just simply reported in the media. No evidence was ever presented that there were bomb threats.
And or staged protests abroad aimed at projecting false dissatisfaction. Do you know what that means?
False dissatisfaction. You are satisfied. Shut up.
That's what I mean. What is it?
You are very happy with Maya Sandu. Crack. um, and so then he goes on. Brussels has been providing support to Moldova. To bolster its resilience in the face of what the EU versus Disinfo Network describes as a coordinated campaign to undermine Sandu, manipulate online discourse, and undermine trust in legitimate information
Well,
sources.
George, just maybe, just spitballing here with you. Maybe she's genuinely unpopular.
I can't believe that. I think she's pro Western and she's liberal, and she's pro EU, pro Ukrainian, pro NATO. She can't be unpopular.
Among her own people.
Exactly. But I love this. Brussels has been providing support to Moldova to bolster its resilience. So that's not interference. So this support that they're providing, which incidentally is European taxpayers. These European taxpayers are providing this support, but it's not interference. And then here, this is an article from Bern. This is one of these Balkan investigative reporters network funded by Soros, the EU, the British government. Exactly all the people that you imagine would be funding it. They are funding this, and they say inside Russia's Balkan training camps for Moldovan destabilization. So apparently, the Russians have set up training camps to send in, I don't know who, to disrupt this election. A joint investigation by Bern and Moldovan CUSENS, which is Security Service, sheds new light on the training camps run by Russian operatives in Bosnia and Serbia. So you're getting Bosnian and Serbian that Chisinau says were used to train Moldovans in destabilization techniques ahead of last year's Moldovan
So
president.
they're going to obviously interview someone that is in these camps, right?
That's right. Well, that's the thing. They kind of prosecute somebody, and then the person starts talking. But the problem is that they can't come up with any evidence that there ever were any of this training camp. I mean, it's like, can you show us, this training camp in action or anything? There's no evidence. Satellite photos of this training camp or something.
Well, I mean, presumably, training camps, I would assume, since it's the Soros crowd, they're going to be young people. Young people have phones. Young people record things. People put things on social media. There's not one image of these camps? Not one?
No, exactly.
Not one video?
Exactly. No.
Not exactly. A drinking game? Nothing?
That's right. So it says, prosecutors say members of the group participated in paramilitary training in Bosnia and Serbia between August the 1st and the 16th, 2024, and August the 22nd and October 11th. They have tied the instructors to the Russian mercenary group Wagner and a number of individuals sanctioned by the EU. The purpose, they say, was to disrupt Moldova's presidential election held in October and November, and in which pro-Western incumbent Maya Sandu defeated pro-Russian challenger. So that was this is you can see that everyone is on standby. They wheel out all these stories in anticipation of this election. That's orders have been issued. Bern has learned that authorities in Bosnia have opened their own case concerning the allegations. Tipped off by Moldova's Security Intelligence Service's special organized crime prosecutors opened an investigation last year. And then says, in October last year, Bosnia's security ministry dismissed claims about paramilitary training camps in Bosnian territory, saying if such a thing really existed, Moldova would probably have informed us, requested information, warned us, or sent a note of protest. We have never officially received a letter from them. When such a problem exists anywhere in the civilized world, it is solved through interstate police cooperation, not fabricated media headlines that serve exclusively for internal political showdown in Moldova. But it sounds as if Bosnia has now changed its view. Obviously, pressure has been applied. You have to open an investigation, even though they're saying we never heard anything. I mean, if you had all this evidence about these training camps, why didn't you tell us about them? And then in February this year, Byrne visited Radenka in Serbia and found burned pieces of paper, remnants of plastic tarpaulin, and torched ground at the location where video and photographs previously shown tents set up last summer. Wow.
Maybe it was a camping site for tourists.
That's kind of what one thinks. They're probably camping. A lot of people do a lot of camping in Serbia and elsewhere in Europe. They like doing things like that, hiking and camping. According to media close to Serbian government, investigators found drones, VR headsets, Starlink satellite internet equipment, and flammable liquids at the site.
Okay, some gamers were there. Okay.
That's right. Neither government nor police have made any comment. By analyzing videos and photos released by the Moldovan police, Byrne geolocated the site to an area a 10-minute drive outside Radenka. And then in February, 51-year-old Prizenko was arrested in Chisinau on suspicion of having recruited some other characters. Now, notice how this Byrne, this investigative reporting network, is working with Moldovan police and prosecutors. So essentially you're acting as an agency of the police. That's nice. That's journalism a la George Soros. And that's what we want our journalists to be doing. And then Prizenko declined to comment. He has already run afoul of authorities in Europe. In December last year, the EU sanctioned Prizenko, who publicly claimed responsibility for paying several Moldovan citizens to paint the Star of David on the streets of Paris in October 2023. The EU said the stunt had significant destabilizing effect in the context of a conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza.
Well, that paragraph, the plot thickens, doesn't it? Well, we're tying up loose ends here. Hey, we got that Paris thing tied up. Okay.
But this is what's interesting. It's like they're always, it's the same few stories. They don't have too many stories, so they have to put, oh yeah, we got that whole thing with the Star of David. It's always bobbing about somewhere. You can always bring it into any story. And the media reports at the time said the operation was conducted on behalf of the GRU with the aim of fueling tensions in French society.
No external force. There is so much instability in France. Nobody from the outside really needs to bother with it. Okay,
yeah.
Destabilized all on their own. Okay,
but it's also puzzling. I don't get what those Star of David.
We did a video on it.
I think we did a couple of videos on it, but it's always been baffling. Like, what would anyone hope to accomplish with those Stars of David? But you can always bring it up. It's, oh yeah, there was this Moldovans, and they're working with the Russians, and then it goes on here, and then reports identified Bulgarian neo-Nazi Mirko Angelov as another participant in the Star of David operation. He is among 13 individuals identified by the Moldovan Secret Service in October 2024 as involved in the paramilitary camps in Bosnia and Serbia. And then they say, another person on the list is Mikhail Potepkin, who is also subject to EU, US, and British sanctions for his alleged ties in the Russian mercenary group.
This is like a lot of. I'm really surprised to actually publish this, because this is like a lot of raw data, and they just throw it against the wall.
That's right.
Any of it makes sense. Okay.
That's right. But I think it's just interesting. So this is, we've got 6 or 7 more weeks of this, of this whole whipping up this fervor on this.
Well, George, I mean, it's the precedent has already been set. I mean, if she loses, then they'll just cancel the election.
Exactly. That's right. That's exactly right. Now, in the meantime, Robert Fico of Slovakia has said, you know, who's interfering in elections? No, who? Who? Tell us who? The British government. And he said they were interfering in Slovakia's election last year, or 2023, or so whenever he was. So there was a story that appeared in the UK media. It's called Declassified UK, and it says here that I wanted to show this, which I'm not showing it. So let me show this story. That this is Declassified UK, and it says the UK government is secretly paying foreign YouTubers stars to publish propaganda videos Declassified can reveal. A 3-year investigation has found that online influencers are made to sign legal contracts banning them from disclosing the government's involvement. Whitehall officials give feedback on each video before the influencers are allowed to publish them. The work is coordinated by the London-based media agency Zinc Network on behalf of the Foreign Office in a deal worth nearly £10 million of public money.
£10 million.
Co-founded by a former Conservative Party spin doctor, the company has won lucrative contracts from the UK, US, and Australian governments, becoming a major player in the influence operations. And so, speaking to Declassified, one former employee described Zinc's work as state propaganda and accused it of interference in foreign elections. I thought only Russia interfered in foreign elections. Wasn't aware of this. Another said the relationship with some online influencers was extremely exploitative. In recent years, the company has recruited hundreds of internet celebrities for various clients, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe. And then Zinc staff tried to find the most relatable influencers and ensure that every video feels authentic. Crucially, the influencers are instructed to sign non-disclosure agreements prior to being told about Foreign Office involvement. And then, as a result, anyone watching their videos would have no idea they had been funded and signed off by UK government official. The work has included a campaign to mobilize young voters in the 2023 Slovakian elections. That election was ultimately won by Robert Fico's left-wing nationalist Smer party, which is seen as being pro-Russian and which has been dependent on older voters compared to the younger pro-Europe progressive Slovakia party. One former employee said that by targeting younger voters, Zinc Network's campaign amounted to interference in the sovereign country's internal affairs. And then, so this is in 2022, the company signed a £9.5 million contract with the Foreign Office. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For TikTok videos? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Usually, large contracts are published in full on the government's website. For almost 2 years, the Foreign Office tried to prevent it from being released under the Freedom of Information Act. And then the documents show that Zinc was contracted to help counter disinformation. So that's it. They're countering disinformation in 22 countries across Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe. That's
by generating disinformation.
Exactly. 22 countries. That's a lot of countries that they're active in. This is done partly by providing a greater variety of reliable information, as well as by increasing societal and general public resilience to disinformation. And the Foreign Office spokesperson said in response, the UK will always champion truth and democratic values. Working with partner governments, we use a range of efforts to resist and rebut disinformation spread by those that wish to target the British people and our allies. I love targeting. Who's targeting British people? How, you're in Slovakia. Who in Slovakia is targeting British people? As part of this important work, we collaborate with commercial organizations, independent media outlet, and civil society to combat manipulation and interference in democratic participation. And then here's Bloomberg, says Slovakia summons UK envoy over alleged election interference. Slovakia's government summoned the British ambassador in an escalating dispute after Prime Minister Robert Fico accused UK authorities of interfering in the country's 2023 parliamentary election. The UK Foreign Office dismissed the charge as completely untrue. They just admitted it. It's completely untrue, according to a statement distributed by the British Embassy in Bratislava. Fico's comments followed a media report that the Foreign Office spent £10 million contract with the media agency 3 years ago. And then it says, Fico said the UK authorities helped groups that tried to steer the 2023 vote, which returned him to office 5 years after he had resigned the premiership. This is a deliberate and intentional action by a foreign power, which is our NATO ally, in cooperation with some Slovak influencers and journalists aimed at influencing the 2023 election. And now,
isn't it amazing, George, is that as Tulsi Gabbard and others are releasing information about Russiagate was all state-driven, and the media went along with it.
That's
and here we have, we have, the bugaboo Russian election interference. There's just mountains and mountains of evidence that the West is doing it to its own people. They never come up with any. There's never been a smoking gun ever.
That's right.
The Russians wouldn't spend money on it. They wouldn't spend money on it.
Exactly. This is not exactly so the Russians. They don't do this. But here we have direct evidence that, and we've known all this. I mean, we've known how much money the United States, the British government spends on foreign election interference. And they did it in Russia, very extensively for years and years they did it. And then they whipped up this complete fraudulent hysteria over Russiagate. And now Robert Fico says, hey, you were kind of plotting against me. Oh, that is an outrageous allegation. Here are the receipts. But here, I just want to show you, how the media have already gone into overdrive to dismiss Fico's claim. Here is first of all, it gives this the British ambassador was summoned to provide further details in a meeting, and then here Euractiv, it says UK denies Fico's election meddling claim. UK flatly rejects Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico's claim of election meddling, responding its campaign only sought to boost youth turnout and back no party. Wait, but
why would Fico make this claim? Is it evidence free?
I mean, they've got the receipts. Yeah, that's right. Oh, it's the youth turnout. Now, why are they so preoccupied with youth turnout? Yeah, and we saw that in the earlier articles. They figure young people don't like Fico. Fico's base is older people. They figure if they turn out the youth, then they're going to get the desired result. Either way, imagine if the Russians were to say, well, we just want to get the youth vote out. I mean, that's all. We're not interfering in your elections. We just want to get young people to vote. I mean, is anyone going to buy that? Oh, well, that's okay. They just want young people to vote. Here's the UK has firmly rejected Fico's claim that it interfered in the 2023 election. And then the British Embassy in Slovakia issued a firm denial. Any claim that the United Kingdom sought to influence the outcome of the election or encourage people to vote for or against a particular political party is completely untrue. That is
but that's different.
That's very different. Exactly. That was not the claim.
It's
That's
different
exactly.
than the accusation.
That's right. Never said that. Never said that they were encouraging to vote for a particular party. This activity was aimed at encouraging young people to participate. Oh, well, that's all. We're just getting young people. I mean, we're just in the business of civil society programs. It's encouraging young people to participate in the democratic process because we care so much about young people. Imagine that we spend £10 million because we care so much about whether young people are voting
Did they
rather than
spend
staying
10
home.
million pounds? Did they spend 10 million pounds to get young British kids?
No, they did not. Um, and um, and then earlier that day, Fitzo told a press conference that London had paid journalists, activists, and influencers to sway public opinion against his party and in favor of the opposition party. And then he says he cited this article published in Declassified UK without presenting further evidence. I always say this, without no evidence, no evidence. Well, there's a lot of evidence that was presented in that article. Without presenting further evidence, Fitzo spoke of a deliberate, intentional act by a foreign power with some journalists and political influencers to influence the vote. And then Slovakia's foreign minister summoned the British ambassador. And then Fitzo warned that if the ambassador failed to provide satisfactory explanation, he would write an open letter to Ursula von der Leyen and personally contact other EU leaders. Well, that's a complete waste of time. She's going to say, I don't have any say. Britain isn't even part of the EU anymore. I mean, they say, I don't have any jurisdiction in London.
Yeah, but I would fault Fitzo in this regard. This is not a EU issue; it's a NATO issue.
It's a
And I
NATO
would-
issue. I
I
agree.
would-
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
would
It's a
frame
NATO
it.
issue. It's
I
a
would
NATO
frame it.
issue. And that's why the British are involved, and that's why they object to Fitzo. But bringing Ursula von der Leyen, I mean, you can already see she's going to send an email to say, "Hey, got nothing to do
Ursula von
with
der
me."
Leyen is a waste of space and time.
Exactly. And then and then it says the article in question alleges that the UK-funded media Zinc network paid influencers across Central and Eastern Europe to encourage young people to vote, and then influencers were asked to post content approved by the British Foreign Office. But speaking to Dainik N, the article's author, British investigative journalist Martin Williams, rejected claims that the UK influenced Slovak elections in favor of any specific political party. He never said that. Then that wasn't the, so they're leaping at this. They have their instructions. Oh no, they didn't favor any political party. The article never claimed that they were doing it in favor of a political party. My investigation showed that influencers on social media were paid to post videos aimed at mobilizing young voters ahead of the 2023 elections. It was not an explicit partisan campaign, nor support for any.
Why are they doing it?
Yeah.
Why are they?
He also dismissed Fitzo's claim that journalists involved. As far as I know, no journalists were involved in this operation. Therefore, it would be wrong to accuse journalists in this case. It doesn't matter. Fitzo just simply listed all the people who were involved. He said influencers. And Williams added that the campaign appeared to call for electoral participation and support for democracy. Of course, that's all because the British care so much about participation and democracy. I gotta have participation. Give me participation or give me death. I mean, the British.
They only bring up the D word is because they want to control the outcome.
Of course, that's right.
They're terrified of democracy. That's why they're investing. How many elderly people in the UK worry about their energy bills in the winter? Okay, and they're worried about the Slovakian youth. Okay,
that's right. The young people. The young people. That's right. Anyway, let's look at our contributors on our locals board. These are the locals member. They're the ones who keep the dogs in clover. They make sure that the dogs are fed, dressed, and kept, into the lifestyle to which they've become accustomed. And here we have a good friend Cynthia, and thank you very much, Cynthia, as always, for your generosity. And so Cynthia says the GOP posted on X, see below, it's going to be hard to see, the image of Trump standing in front of a car with a slogan that reads, "Making automobiles great again." And the post says, "This one big, beautiful bill will drive the return of the great American car. But that car pictured behind him is a Soviet-made Lada 1200. So is Team Taco, which is Trump always chickens out, Trump simply clueless, or are they somehow planning to bypass the tariff by having foreign cars made in the US, including cars that are from enemy countries from which they're at war?" I haven't heard that they're planning to build Ladas on U.S. soil. So I don't know how
No
they
one
came
would
by
buy
that.
them. No one would buy them.
No one would buy them. So I don't know how they why that appeared on that picture. I mean, but it is true that Trump's tariffs are not necessarily directed at foreign industries. He's quite happy that foreign industries would thrive as long as their plants are on U.S. soil. So he has no problem with BMW cars being manufactured as long as they're being manufactured on U.S. soil. So it's not, oh, we need to boost the U.S. auto industry. That's not what he's saying. He said, yeah, but let's just build BMWs or Volkswagens on U.S. soil and provide jobs to Americans. So he could easily build Soviet cars. I don't think he's going to do it, but in principle, there's no reason not to.
I don't know. When I saw the image, I mean, it was all over Telegram, and people were making fun of it. I don't know if it was a real picture, or and if it was a mistake. That would really surprise me. I mean, for all the criticism we've had of this administration, they are media savvy. Okay, they're
Yes,
very
they are.
media.
Yeah, that's
And somebody would have said, "Hey, that's an odd looking car." I see them all the time, but I mean, you don't see them very much in Moscow. You see them outside of Moscow because people don't want to drive a Lada. Okay, I mean,
right.
you got stuck with a Lada. It's not popular. They have a real image problem. They've done so much to try to make it more attractive, and just with very, very little success. Okay, so
Yes.
the cars that people are willing to drive now are Chinese. Okay, and
Right.
they're
So,
all over the
but I take it Ladas are still being produced in Russia.
Of course, I know, yeah. But I mean, when you go outside of Moscow, it's one of the perennial. What is it? Russia never can't suffer fools and bad roads. I mean, there was a phrase like that, George, at some point.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's a vast, vast country, and the roads aren't all that great everywhere. And a Lada can take it. Ladas can take punishment. Okay, and so.
Right.
Why would you want to have a really nice car on bad roads? So you have a Lada on bad roads, and it takes a licking and still keeps ticking, as a Timex commercial said. So
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know how in the world you could possibly, unless you're saying to the American people, yes, to the permanent underclass, you will never really have any money. You have no future whatsoever, and here's a cheap car for you. That might work.
I suppose so, but it'd still be odd because there are other cheap cars. I mean, for Americans, I mean, you can always get a Honda, a Hyundai. There's plenty of cheap Japanese cars, cheap American cars that if you don't have much money. So I don't know whether they necessarily want to own a Lada. But anyway, thank you.
Unless somebody that made it up was sending a secret message about something.
Yes,
I don't know.
exactly. It's a secret code. Yes. Anyway, thank you so much, Cynthia. Judy, always very good to see you. Thank you so much, Judy, as always, for your generosity. And Judy says BBC quoted Commerçant saying that Trump in 2017 threatened Kim Jong-un in exactly the same way by moving 2 submarines near to North Korea, and that all of it was just prelude to friendly negotiations. As to sanctions, a note that it looks like Trump has wiggled out of Graham's 500% tariffs, yes, and even out of his own 100% tariffs. And remember, Witkoff is the guy who talks to Putin and Kirill Dmitriev about potential U.S.-Russia economic deals, which is a fun discussion for both sides. It is true that that happened in the case of North Korea, even though it never really went went anywhere. And I think that that's a kind of the flaw in the Trump's strategy, is that he makes all the right steps and then kind of doesn't follow through or kind of reverses himself. So that North Korean thing really didn't bear fruit, even though it looked promising for a while. There were 3 meetings, and so it's possible that this could be a prelude to some kind of a serious rapprochement with Russia. I just don't see any evidence of this. There just doesn't seem to be any
Well, I
evidence.
mean,
Trump
again,
is moving in a direction whereby he's prepared to make the kind of serious concessions that would be necessary to get this war to come to an end. I mean, he has to bite the bullet and make the kind of serious concessions that Russia is demanding.
yeah, I mean, as far as I know, the rapprochement hasn't gone anywhere, okay, at all, okay. Maybe that's what he wants, but it doesn't have anything to do with Ukraine as far as the Russians are concerned. Okay,
Right.
that's a separate issue. They're not. They don't overlap. You want to have better relations, okay? You want to have trade relations, okay? You're going to have to do something about your sanctions, but we're not begging. No, Trump is painting himself into a corner. I mean, it's needlessly, so needlessly.
Needlessly, but at this stage, first of all, the sanctions are going to be very difficult because whatever.
Oh, they're going to be on forever, everyone. I mean,
Exactly, the Europeans are going to.
no one here.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
except for maybe SWIFT or something like that, because that affects the global economy.
Right.
But, I mean, any favors for Russia? I don't see any of them coming.
I don't see it. The Europeans are not going to.
The Europeans won't either. No.
That's right.
Remember, everyone, we had that wonderful Professor Sheila Fitzpatrick. I'm still stoked that that interview was so nice. The Soviet Union was sanctioned. Yep. It continued as an ongoing concern. So, I mean, sanctions are a norm if you look over the last 100 years.
Well, they did something that was kind of unusual as their first act. They renounced their debts. You're not supposed to do that. I mean, you have to.
There were a lot of people in France that were upset about that.
That's right. Even if you don't pay off your debts, even if you just keep rolling over your debts, you can't just simply renounce them. And that's what they did. They renounced them, and that made everything very, very difficult for the Soviet Union. They couldn't really continue in the normal business. But you're right about the Graham's 500% tariffs. I think that's Trump has now established a principle. He and he alone will determine with the tariffs. But as far as the 100%, I mean, it's like he I don't know where that's going to go. It's possible that he's kind of will forget about it because he slapped the 25% on India. Was it? Whatever, 26% on India, but we don't really know what he's doing with China. And with China, he is negotiating some kind of a deal. So, he may continue to threaten this 100% tariff as he negotiates a deal with China. But I think, you're going back to this, whether there's any real economic deals that are to be had. Without resolving the Ukraine problem, I don't quite see how much real economic cooperation can take place between the U.S. and.
Well, and also, again, outside the fishbowl of it all, I mean, the authorities in Russia will say, "Look, Trump's all over the place with tariffs and trade deals and all that." I mean, let's just kind of step back and watch how this unfolds. I mean, they're not going to commit to anything in this environment whatsoever. So, I suppose, Judy, what George and I and all the rest of us will be curious about is that when is the deadline? Is it August 8th?
I think it's August 8th. So that's 4 days' time.
Well, let's see how they try to spin it.
You're right.
I mean, that's the only thing. I don't think anything. I mean, nobody's talking about it here. I mean, what are they going to come up with next? That's the kind of attitude.
Right, and I don't think. I mean, India has given every indication that it's not going to budge, at least not for the time being. Has no interest in moving, and so that is always. I would imagine that he's going to postpone these the tariffs. I don't think he's going to.
That's what I mean by.
Yeah.
But how will he spin the postponement? That's what I'm getting at.
Um,
That's what I'm curious about.
Well, I mean, how does he spin all of them? He's saying, "Hey, I'm just going to reschedule." I mean, he's done this over and over again. We're going to just keep rolling over.
Yeah,
But
I
he's
have
true
another.
that
I have another African and Asian peace deal I have to work on. I'll get back to the Russians.
It is true, though, that with Russia and Ukraine, he's kind of, you feel like it's almost like there's a zombie-like quality to it. He's pursuing a policy that his heart isn't really in it. He's decided that this he needs to do this. I got to get a peace. I got to bring this war to an end, and I'm going to do this with the sanctions, even though I don't actually think that these sanctions are going to work. I mean, he's now said it several times. He doesn't think they're going to work, and yet he continues to do this, and he does seem to have changed his stance. I mean, however much he says, "Oh, we were very close to a deal with Putin 4 times." We were very close to a deal. That was untrue. That was at no point. They had several phone conversations. There was no point at which Trump said afterwards, "Yeah, we're very close to a deal," or the Russians said, "Yeah, we're very close to a deal." We had the readouts from the Russian readout and Trump's readout. Nothing. There was no talk of an imminent deal.
Yeah, I mean, when the first time I heard that, I was tempted to contact George directly. Did I miss something? Because nothing was remotely close.
Right.
Just because you have a telephone conversation doesn't mean you have a deal.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, it was a pleasant conversation. I'm sure it was very polite. But what's that got to do with anything? Then he starts bombing. So it's like he's trying this now. It may be, he's thinking down the road. And then he applies the sanctions. Sanctions in due course fail to do the job, and that provides him with a way to get out of it. He says, "Well, that was a complete waste of time. Let's try something different." I mean, maybe he's going to do that, but at the moment, it's hard.
It seems to me. Again, I'm just trying to assess the terrain here. It seems like Keith Kellogg is winning out in all of this. Just a little bit more pressure, a few more.
Yeah. But
all I need is one more Patriot battery, and it's over.
I think that's what Keith Kellogg says, and that's what NATO says, and so on. But that isn't what Trump is saying. I mean, what Trump has now said several times, "I don't think this is going to work." He says the Russians are very wily, and and he kind of says Putin's a tough guy. He's not going to bend. He knows this isn't going to bend. I mean, basically, nothing is going to change without a direct American military involvement. I really don't think Trump wants to go there. I mean, you never know with Trump, but I don't think he wants to go there. I don't think he wants to get America directly involved in the fighting. So therefore, he kind of already knows that nothing is going to change. Putting additional sanctions or sending some additional weapon system, that's not going to change.
I mean, I'm glad you bring that up because I think that's important here. If we look at, you remember the ATACMS and when javelins, the ATACMS and all. It's interesting if we look at that chronology. Right. We're not going to send them right now. It's too long range, and then they say, "Okay, we're going to send them." Okay, now we come up with the Tomahawks. Now, if you take the past as prelude, will they say, "Well, now we're going to start sending Tomahawks"? That's when everybody should be really, really worried.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that is basically throwing the gauntlet down, because
Yeah.
tomahawk missiles are long range and they can carry a nuclear
Yeah.
weapon.
Right.
For the Russians, that is way over any red line.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking only for myself right now,
Right.
only for myself. If
Right.
that is agreed to, then wherever those tomahawks are launched from, they are a target.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. That would be a major major escalation with the major consequences. Anyway, Cynthia um, says back in 2011, I overheard a medical resident discussing that he was able to pay for his med school expenses and even buy a house with the money he got for participating in weapons transfers to the Middle East. He also mentioned that he often flies to Israel, but I did think it a bit odd that he wasn't at all concerned about getting caught discussing his criminal activities, knowing someone might overhear him. Then again, he perhaps knew the US would never prosecute him since his crime benefits Israel. Well, I imagine, that there are all sorts of figures, the kind of middlemen who facilitate the transfer of weapons. That basically they're obviously direct government to government transfers, and then there are also independent contractors. With independent contractors, they're always running a risk because at some point the U.S. policy could change. And if you've been providing weapons, say, to Gaddafi, and then suddenly the U.S. says Gaddafi is our deadly enemy, then the U.S. government could launch a prosecution. But if he was just simply transferring weapons to Israel at a nice little markup for him, probably nothing much is going to happen to him. I don't think he's going to be prosecuted.
I don't know who would prosecute him.
Yeah, I don't think so. But there are obviously there are all sorts of middlemen. It's a very lucrative business, particularly people who have somehow had a military background, spent some time in the military, so they made all these connections.
How many newly minted millionaires do you think, George, are using American arms being sent to Ukraine?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, because there's always some weapon systems. They're in the armories. Yeah, no one really wants them. Hey, you want to make us some money? Transferring this stuff.
Nobody will miss them.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's so much corruption because there's so much money has been poured into the military, and there's so much useless hardware lying around. Yeah, I think there's absolutely. You can transfer them to through the middlemen. That's the arms black market.
What happened? There was
black markets in the world.
And when the Soviet Union came to an end and Ukraine became a sovereign country, the military-industrial complex of the Soviet Union, now the former Soviet Union, they just kept sending out arms to the countries of the
Right.
Ukraine. They just kept
Right.
sending it, but
Right.
it's different. It's not the same country anymore. Well, it's a contract. We're just honoring it, and the arms kept going. Okay,
Yeah,
of course they were never paid for.
Right. Yeah.
And then they ended up all through Africa and Asia.
Yeah. But you remember the Iran-Contra affair? That was an amazing kind of independent contractors were kind of descending all this weaponry. I mean, it's just amazing they can get their hands on, because there's so much lying around, so much useless hardware lying around. Because they say American government says, well, we have no use for it because we're getting the new model is coming in. Hey, let's transfer this to country X, somewhere in the Gulf or to Iran.
If you could pick it up and put it on a plane, welcome to it.
Exactly. So it's a very very sleazy kind of undertaking. But that's what happens when so much money is poured into the weapons industry. I mean, there's just a lot of surplus hardware lying around. Now, I think there's corruption. I think there's corruption in Russia. I think some people in Russia are making a lot of money transferring weapons, on the black market. That's happening in Ukraine. So, there's a lot of money to be had here.
It's there's a I don't know if anybody has seen the Catch 22 HBO series. It's really really good. Okay, and what George is saying here is that one of the scenes where the guys dealing in the black market, they're dealing with the German, and so they
Yep.
tell the Germans where to bomb to
Yep.
destroy American planes, and
Yep.
then the colonel's like, "Oh my God, we just lost 50 planes." He said, "Don't worry, just order 50 more. Nobody will care."
Right. That's from the book. That was in the book. That the Germans actually bombed the American base. I mean, so, yeah, so that was so, oh, we just provided them with information for where they can destroy American planes. It's a great book, and
Well, watch the HBO series because it's right to the book. I mean, it's why I liked it so much. I mean, it's an audio video book. Okay, the series. It's really, and if you haven't read the book, I know a Russian man. He learned English by reading Catch 22 with a dictionary,
Right.
and he kept reading the book over and over again
Right.
until he knew every single word. Amazing, learning English through Catch 22.
Right. I mean, when you look back, they had a real audacity to it. Remember, he wrote this book about World War II. It's a very cynical view of World War II, the supposedly good war. It wasn't Vietnam. It was easy to be cynical about Vietnam or Korea. He did it about World War II. So you can see that was an audacious book. Anyway, our time is up, Peter. So do you have any parting thoughts? No.
I'm on vacation. I'm recovering from a second eye surgery. It's muggy. It's rainy. It's depressing.
Well, it's depressing, but we're keeping the dogs, trying to keep them happy. So we have very generous contributors, doing what they can for the dogs. So they're having a hard time. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody who joined us. We will be back for our live stream next Monday at the same time, and then tomorrow, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, I'm doing my solo. Please join me. See you then. All the best. Goodbye.